Jean-Marc Domal awoke to the din of the call to prayer and to the sound of his children weeping. It was just after 7 o'clock on an airless Tunisian morning. For an instant, as he adjusted his eyes to the sunlight, Domal was oblivious to the wretchedness of his situation. Then the memory of it took him like a shortness of breath. He almost cried out in despair, staring up at the cracked, whitewashed ceiling. A married man of 41 at the mercy of a broken heart. Amelia Weldon had been gone for 6 days, gone without warning, gone without reason, gone without leaving a note. One moment she had been caring for his children at the villa, preparing their supper, reading them a bedtime story. The next she had disappeared. At dawn on Saturday, Jean-Marc's wife, Céline, had found the au pair's bedroom stripped of its belongings, Amelia's suitcases taken from the cupboard, her photographs and posters removed from the walls. The family safe in the utility room was locked, but Amelia's passport and a necklace, which she had placed there for safekeeping, were both missing. There was no record at Port de la Goulette of a 20-year-old British woman matching Amelia's description boarding a ferry for Europe, nor any airline out of Tunis with a passenger listing for Amelia Weldon. No hotel or hostel in the city had a guest registered under her name, and the few fresh-faced students and expats with whom she had socialized in Tunis appeared to know nothing of her whereabouts. Presenting himself as a concerned employer, Jean-Marc had made inquiries at the British Embassy, telexed the agency in Paris that had arranged Amelia's employment, and telephoned her brother in Oxford. Nobody, it seemed, could unravel the enigma of her disappearance. Jean-Marc's only solace lay in the fact that her body had not been discovered in some back alley of Tunis or Carthage, that she had not been admitted to hospital suffering from an illness which might have taken her from him forever. He was otherwise utterly bereft. The woman who had brought upon him the exquisite torture of infatuation had vanished as completely as an echo in the night. The children's crying continued. Jean-Marc pulled back the single white sheet covering his body and sat up on the bed, massaging an ache in the small of his back. He heard Céline saying, "I'm telling you for the last time, Thibault, you are not watching cartoons until you finish your breakfast." And it took all of his strength not to rise from the bed, to stride into the kitchen and, in his fury, to smack his son through the thin shorts of his Asterix pyjamas. Instead, Domal drank from a half-empty glass of water on the bedside table, opened the curtains and stood on the first-floor balcony, gazing out across the rooftops of La Marse. A tanker was moving west to east across the horizon, 2 days from Suez. Had Amelia left by private boat? Gutmann, he knew, kept a yacht out at Hammamet. The rich American Jew, with his contacts and his privilege, the rumors of links to the Mossad. Domal had seen how Gutmann had looked at Amelia. A man who had never wanted for anything in his life now desired her as his prize. Had he taken her from him? There was no evidence to support his baseless jealousy, only the cuckold's fear of humiliation. Numb from lack of sleep, Domal settled on a plastic chair on the balcony, a smell of baking bread rising up from a neighboring garden. 2 meters away, close to the window, he spotted a half-finished packet of Mar Légère and lit one with a steady hand, coughing on the first lungful of smoke. Footsteps in the bedroom. The children had stopped crying. Céline appeared at the balcony door and said, "You're awake," in a tone of voice which managed to harden his heart against her still further. He knew that his wife blamed him for what had happened, but she did not know the truth. Had she guessed, she might even have comforted him. Her own father, after all, had consorted with dozens of women during his married life. He wondered why Céline had not simply fired Amelia. That, at least, would have saved him from this season of pain. It was as though she wanted to torment him by keeping her in the house. "I'm awake," he replied, although Céline was long gone, locked in the bathroom under her ritual cold shower, scrubbing the child-altered body that was now repulsive to him. Jean-Marc stubbed out his cigarette, returned to the bedroom, found his dressing gown discarded on the floor, and walked downstairs to the kitchen. Fatima, one of 2 maids assigned to the Domal residence as part of the expat package offered by his employers in France, was putting on an apron. Jean-Marc ignored her and, finding a percolator of coffee on the stove, prepared himself a café au lait. Thibault and Lola were giggling with one another in an adjoining room, but he did not wish to see them. Instead, he sat in his office, the door closed, sipping from the bowl of coffee. Every room, every smell, every idiosyncrasy of the villa held for him a memory of Amelia. It was in this office that they had first kissed. It was at the base of those oleander trees at the rear of the property, visible now through the window, that they had first made love in the dead of night, while Céline slept obliviously indoors. Later, Jean-Marc would take appalling risks, slipping away from his bedroom at 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning to be with Amelia, to hold her, to swallow her, to touch and manipulate a body which was so intoxicating to him that he actually laughed now at the memory of it. And then he heard himself entertaining such thoughts, and knew that he was little more than a romantic, self-pitying fool. So many times he had been on the brink of confessing, of telling Céline every secret of the affair, the rooms that he and Amelia had taken in hotels in Tunis, the 5 April days that they had spent together in Sfax, while his wife had been in Beaune with the children. Jean-Marc knew, as he had always known, that he enjoyed deceiving Céline. It was a form of revenge for all the stillness and ennui of their marriage. The lying kept him sane. Amelia had understood that. Perhaps that was what had bound them together, a shared aptitude for deceit. He had been astonished at her ability to finesse their indiscretions, to cover her tracks so that Céline had no suspicion of what was going on. There were the mischievous lies at breakfast. "Thank you. Yes, I slept very well," combined with a studied indifference towards Jean-Marc whenever the two lovers found themselves in Céline's company. It was Amelia who had suggested that he pay for their hotel rooms in cash, to avoid any dubious transactions appearing on Jean-Marc's bank statements. It was Amelia who had stopped wearing perfume, so that the scent of Hermès calèche would not be carried back to the marital bed. There was no question in Jean-Marc's mind that she had derived a deep satisfaction from these clandestine games. The telephone rang. It was rare for anybody to call the house before 8 o'clock in the morning. Jean-Marc was certain that Amelia was trying to contact him. He picked up the receiver and said, "Oui?" in near desperation. A woman with an American accent replied, "Jean-Marc?" It was Gutmann's wife, the WASP heiress, her father a senator, family money stinking all the way back to the Mayflower. "Joan? That's right. Have I called at a bad moment?" He had no time to lament her blithe assumption that all conversations between them should be conducted in English. Neither Joan nor her husband had made any attempt to learn even rudimentary French, only Arabic. "No, it is not a bad time. I was just on my way to work." He assumed that Joan wanted to arrange to spend the day at the beach with his children. "Do you want to speak to Céline?" A pause. Some of the customary energy went out of Joan's voice, and her mood became businesslike, even somber. "Actually, Jean-Marc, I wanted to speak with you."